In a world of extremes, taboos, and biases, it's often complicated to meet in the middle, or as I call it, the gray area. The gray area is where topics we avoid but need to tackle exist. It's where people on both sides of an issue find understanding. The gray area is where we learn new things about others and ourselves. And there's no better way to do that than with one of the most dynamic love and relationship experts this side of heaven. She's from Chicago. She's my Chi-Town sister. I found out that we're actually pretty much kinfolk through some family ties that we share. And I'm talking about Love McPherson. We are talking all things dating, marriage, and much more. So you guys don't want to miss that conversation. But I do want to jump right in and start by acknowledging the loss of one of the most prominent and impactful legal minds of our time, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a pioneer for gender equality throughout her tenure in the Supreme Court. She spent 87 years on this earth, and what a life lived. And, for those who are unfamiliar, I encourage you, check out, there's so many articles right now, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, really breaking down a lot of the legislation that she played a huge part in. So this is a big loss, obviously, for the Supreme Court. Her legacy is etched in American history, and she will certainly be missed. And there's a lot of tension kind of building right now on the political front, because people are trying to figure out and or arguing about how to proceed in her absence and who the next person will be to fill her space. So we'll keep an eye on that as we move forward. I wanted also to get you guys' thoughts, and I want to shout out really quick. I want to shout out my Instagram family, everybody on my Instagram that's watching. I want to say hello. I let my Instagram followers in on the first few minutes of the show. And this is just something I do for them because they support me so much. I go on Instagram Live and I let them hear just the top part of the show. And then what I do is I hang up on them. I say, guys, that's enough. You have several options. If you're in Philly, you can dial in to 100.7. I can't even say it, 100.7 FM. If you don't live in Philly, Philly's Favorite app, download it, listen live, or you can go to philliesfavorite.com. But what you can't do is sit on my Instagram and get a whole show. So sorry, but you can stay on for now. Love you guys. And also shout out to Instagram, my Instagram followers who engage with me as I'm talking for the hot topics. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for engaging with me. And for those who are not on my Instagram Live and who are listening to me right now, you can engage with me at any time on social media. On Instagram and Twitter at Shari, SHARI_Nycole, NYCOLE. Speaking of social media, I want to talk about what's going on with TikTok just a little bit. So, as you know, TikTok, it was looking like TikTok was going to be gone. President Obama, not President Obama. Yeah, right. President Trump was speaking about banning the app. And so now there's been a deal that's happened, and Trump has given tentative approval to a deal that will keep TikTok alive. So for those young folk who use TikTok, I don't, but for those who do, and adults as well, it's not going anywhere just yet, which is great. And so this was like a month-long kind of thing, this back and forth that was happening. But it looks like a deal is being reached. The TikTok downloads were set to be banned in the U.S. starting midnight tonight. But doesn't look like that's going to happen. As part of the deal, it's basically rescuing TikTok. The U.S. tech company Oracle is joining hands with Walmart. I don't really know how that's all. I have to look more into how that's unfolding. That's interesting. But they're joining hands with Walmart to form a new entity. And it's going to be called TikTok Global, and it will be headquartered right here in the United States. Now, this is great that TikTok is still going to be around. That's fantastic. But this is the part that really grinds my gears a little bit. And I want to shout out my brother Willie Moore Jr. is on my Instagram checking me out right now. Now I'm nervous. Shout out to, if you don't listen to the Willie Moore Jr. show, you don't love yourself. So make sure you tune in to Willie Moore Jr. show wherever you are. That's my brother. I appreciate you so much. I wish he knew how much I appreciated him. Just seeing him pop up on my Instagram Live just made my day. But this is the part of the TikTok deal that grinds my gears. So as part of the deal, Trump has requested $5 billion be put into a fund for education. Okay, this sounds good, right? Yeah. So we can educate people, his words, not mine, as to real history, the real history of our country, not the fake history. This is what he said. I'm very confused. Now, again, I never tell anybody who to vote for, because that's not what I'm here to do, and I don't think that's something that anybody deserves to have me do. I'm just going to tell you to vote. I'm trying to figure out, though, when he talks about The real history and not the fake history. I'm very confused as to what he means by that. That's number one. Number two, since you're a historian and since you want to somehow give back, and it's $5 billion, why don't you just provide reparations for black people in America? Or is that too much? Am I going too far? I'm just saying, I mean, the money's there. So I'm just trying to figure out what history he's talking about. The language is weird, but again, you know, it is what it is. End all be all. TikTok is here, presumably to stay. I'll keep you guys posted on that. And then I finally want to finish out just congratulating WNBA star Maya Moore. Earlier this week, she announced her marriage to Jonathan Irons. Get this, the man she helped free from prison over the summer. Now, Maya Moore first met, they announced this on Good Morning America. And initially when I heard this story, I was like, she hasn't known the guy that long. He's been in jail for 22 years. I'm confused. Like, what's going on? But they actually met when she was 18 years old, through her godparents, who began advocating for Irons through a prison ministry. And so in 2016, Maya put her foot down and started speaking out about racial injustice and failures in the justice system. And that was when she was still playing in the WNBA, which caused some controversy. And then she ultimately left the league to fight her now husband's case full time in 2019. And she's yet to return to the league. And so although he's been exonerated, they're married, you know, she was asked about returning to the WNBA, and right now she doesn't really have an answer for that. So love is blind. That's all I have to say. I don't necessarily know if that's a situation I would be open to, but I'll tell you this, love comes in all different forms, and you have to be open to it. And so with that, I want to congratulate Maya Moore, and I really do wish her and her husband Jonathan Irons a very happy life together, and you know, that he would be able to live the life that he missed out on for over 20 years. Think about that. This man was robbed of over 20 years of his life. So it's nice to know that he can now move in love with someone who advocated and fought so hard for him. And I just wish him nothing but the best. And for me, as a former basketball player myself, I always like to see, my basketball family. Everybody that plays basketball to me is family. But love to see that, see a black woman moving forward and continuing to do amazing things both on and off the court. So shout out to Maya Moore. And with that, I want to, because the whole show is devoted to love. I've got relationship expert Love McPherson coming up soon. And so I wanted you guys to get in the groove and really get in the moment. So all of my songs are about love. And this song is dedicated to Maya Moore and her new husband. It's called Stay With Me, BB and CC Winans. Okay, y'all, I'm a millennial, but I'm an old soul. I love me. And I did say it that way. I love me some BB and CC Winans. That's one of my favorite songs off of their album Relationships, which, man, that song it does it for me every time. But what also does it for me is getting an opportunity to speak with, first of all, an amazing human being. Okay. But she's also a relationship expert. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a media personality. And she's probably going to be able to get all up in my business this evening. I'm talking about Love McPherson. Love, it's so nice to have you on the Gray Area.
Oh, my God. It is such an honor, Shari.
I have missed you. I haven't seen you in probably over a year now.
Yeah.
I'm so glad this happened.
Yes. I am so glad it happened, too. And by the way, me and you both love that BB and CC you just played, okay? I was moving behind the scenes.
I'm trying to tell the people. I'm trying to tell
the
y'all.
people.
The people are sleeping. They need to expand the catalogs here. We got a lot of great music in the world.
We got to poke them.
So I wanna jump right in with you, Love, because I have a lot of questions, and I wanna be able for people to kind of just engage with us via listening and get some questions that they may have answered while we're talking. So, we're in a very unique time. And for me, as a single woman, not by choice, some people are like, it's not possible to be single. It's a choice. No, it's really not. It's tough out here. But now we're in a pandemic. Okay. So it's hard enough to date. Now a pandemic comes. What is some advice that you would give to men and women who really are still trying to, meet others, date in a healthy way, so to speak, and now they're having to kind of be flexible with this pandemic happening?
What I would say, the first thing is the pandemic is considered a global crisis. when there is a crisis requires a shift. When it was 9/11, we had to shift the way we travel. We were taking off our shoes, something we never did before. And now it has become normalized. And during this global pandemic, you also have to shift, and you have to pause, though, because you will have shifted, Shari, and don't know you've shifted. You will have changed your mindset and changed your value system and don't know that you've changed them, because you cannot go through what we just went through and not have some different values and appreciate things differently than you did before. So you got to first pause and say, wait a minute, Shari, who are you now? That's the first thing. Because once you know who you are, you know what you value, and you decide, I am not going to abandon my values, then you can bring other people aboard. But if you're still trying to play the old Shari, that's pre-COVID-19, she doesn't exist anymore. And so, first of all, let's get to know the new Shari. Let's make sure we love the new Shari. And then the third thing is make sure the Shari that we are loving loves relationships. For real, for real. And this is what I'm talking about.
Have you been tapping my phone lines with my conversations with my friends? Have you been tapping my phone lines?
I have not. and this is why I'm saying that. Because a lot of times what I hear is this. Men make it kind of obvious when they are just kind of, playing just surface relationships. Women will say, oh, yes, I'm looking for a guy, all this kind of stuff. But they aren't always really truthful with themselves. They're not trying to lie. They just aren't truthful with themselves because they have not faced some things in their past that really hurt them, that have asked them that made them fear relationships in a certain way. So they will fear the concept of loving wholeheartedly. Like, this is what you have to ask. This is what you do to have a serious relationship. You take the most fragile part of you, your heart. You say, this I know. You could drop this heart. You could throw this heart and pick up somebody else's heart instead. You could neglect this heart. You can abuse this heart, but I hand you my heart and ask you to handle it with care. Now, let me tell you something. You might start off doing that, but then what you will find is people will say, I'll give you a piece of my heart and see how you do with that. And once you work that, then I'll give you a little bit more.
Wow.
And they will continue to hold back, even sometimes in marriage. And then if you mess up, they start snatching it back. They start pulling it away. They see you can't handle it with care. And so that's a huge thing to trust somebody with if you have ever had somebody not handle it with care. So you got to go back in your past and say, did I ever give my heart away? And they did not handle it with care.
Wow. And it's so interesting you say that. Just for me, from a personal standpoint, I was having a conversation with some girlfriends of mine, and we were talking about, relationships, and one of my friends asked, what do you think is with your generation, with the millennial generation is the problem? Because on paper, you seem like you should not be single. And I told her, I said, well, it's a couple things. I think that sometimes, not even sometimes, but I'm in a generation where a lot of young men, unfortunately, haven't necessarily seen manhood modeled before them. And so you can't expect someone all the time to just automatically, naturally do something that they've never seen modeled before them. Some things are learned behavior, amidst other things. But one of the things that I said, too, I said the onus isn't just on the men. The onus is on the women. And for me in particular, I was talking about how I struggle with vulnerability. And with that being said, I don't bring the complete me to the table when I talk about wanting to be in a relationship and wanting to seriously date. So it goes back to what you said. It's that halfway, putting your toe in the water and not really getting in there and trusting that you'll be able to swim or float or what have you. And so one of the things that you also mentioned was how COVID has really kind of transitioned us into new people. And, the core of us is still there. But at least for me, this has been a time when I've been able to be really really introspective and really examine, okay, what are some of the things that you're not bringing to the table, just in general. And I found that my outlook on life and on relationships and dating has shifted a bit because there was some self-work that I just wasn't doing. And I don't think he was intentionally avoiding, but I think when we busy our lives up, we don't give ourselves an opportunity, nor God an opportunity to do some heart surgery and do some work. So these are just great points that you made, and also kind of going into, you know, dating as a Christian, and there's so many things around us, whether it's images, whether it's, you know, what we're listening to on the radio or seeing on television, that kind of tell us, you know, this is the way it should go. What are your go ahead. What is your advice?
My thoughts about that is this. I think that to some respects, Shari, it may even be more difficult to date as a Christian than as a non-Christian. Now, that might sound like a real curious statement, right? And
it doesn't. Sounds right to me.
I'll tell you why. It's because a lot of times you will find that the good girl, the church girl, has been doubly disappointed by God in the dating thing. And you will see that we were promised that if we be real good, if we keep ourselves, if we be holy, if we go work and volunteer and be busy in the church and believe God, and he was going to do this and he was going to do that. And you know what? God has performed in our businesses. God has performed in our careers. God has performed in our home, but he totally dropped the ball in our relationship. And then the one that you did walk up the aisle saying this was none but a miracle and a testimony, and then 3 years later you at the divorce court. And you're like, God, did I miss you? What's going on? And so a lot of times we will trust God with all our tithes, our offering, our finance, everything. But you be like, God, you know what? You ain't that great in the relationship area. I got this for this one. And that we don't want to talk about that for real, but that's the real deal. We don't trust God about that relationship thing. And because we feel that he has not shown up like he said, we have seen ourselves try to do stuff right, and we see the girl who's starting and bopping walk right up that aisle with that man. And so we're like, wait a minute, something wrong. Something wrong here, God. How am I still down here? And she up there saying I do, and he looking all into her eyes. You know what I'm saying?
All starry.
So, exactly. So what happens is it becomes hope deferred. Makes the heart sick. What is the heart sick? Is a disappointed. It becomes disappointed. So we begin to just stay in our sweet spot. We just begin to work and busy ourselves and act like we're too busy in our careers. We don't have time for relationships because we're just doing this. And when COVID hit, it said, oh, you ain't busy doing nothing right now. Now what? And you have to stop and pause and look and see yourself. You have to look at your traumas. You have to look at what the past has brought you. You have to look at your belief system. You have to self-assess. You have to look at the stuff that you were suppressing, and even things showed up that you were repressing. And so when that happened, you began to see how difficult it is. But we have to say this. We have to begin to self-examine as single people and begin to say, what is it that I do value? And once we say, what is it that I do value? If you think that relationships will bring you happiness, you are already on the wrong course. You are defeated already. You are defeated already. Because that is not the purpose of marriage, and that is not even what happens in marriage. Even science will tell you that your mind begins to make things. The science is that whether it'll disappoint you, you will expect what you think you're going to get. For the first 2 years, they said there might be like an upswing in your happiness, but then your mind is created to adjust, and it just becomes normalized. So you say, I think we fall in love. You start putting expectations externally on that person. You don't bring me flowers no more. You start saying, what do we do that we used to do that used to bring me such joy? You don't have that ability right there. Your mind is already adjusted to that relationship. Your mind is already adjusted to that person. It's not about doing something new. It's about making decisions for your happiness. But if you have no experience on doing that while you're single, you sure can't do it when you're married.
Woo! I feel like I'm in a therapy session. This is, I mean, I hope I'm not being, for everybody listening, I hope this was not a selfish booking, because I'm really getting my life over here. I mean, it's weird. It's almost like love lives in my house. I'm getting nervous. I mean, and it's fun because, you know, I grew up in a family where we had a lot of what's the word I want to, very conversational family. We would sit around, you know, and talk about all types of things, lots of talking. But when we talk about, we never really got to the depths of what we are talking about right now. And I think that's the thing. I mean, and you know, a lot of people in my family, we are very close, and it's been a great thing. It's been of such benefit for me throughout the course of my life. But I do wish that, you know, I would have been able to kind of have these type of conversations, especially coming out of high school, going into college, and, you know, really coming into more of an understanding of there's also a process to this. You know, things don't just happen. There's work that leads up to you, you know, grabbing hold to some of the things that you're believing God for and you believe he has for you. And, you know, I wanted to ask you, too, I mean, that disappointment piece is so key. And I think the busying up is a big one, too. But also I was speaking to my godmother maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I was talking to her about just the fatigue in waiting and being single for such an extended period of time. It's at least for me, I found it to be exhausting at times. So what would you say to men and women who are like, man, you know, I'm out here doing the self work. I think I am. I'm praying. I'm trying to make sure that I'm in a position across the board, whether it's professionally, personally, to be able to have a person in my life. What do you say to folks who are just like tired? Just want something different.
This is what I would say to you. First of all, I'm not going to minimize the desire for relationships, because God created us as relational creatures. So it's great that we want relationships. This is what I would say. And I'm going to ask you this question, actually. Shari, why do you want a relationship? Why do you want a relationship?
You know, it's
think about that.
You know what? I'm going to think on that while this next song is playing, and then I will have an answer when we get back. It's Erica Campbell and Warren Campbell, all of my life. That was Erica Campbell and Warren Campbell, all of my life. That's what hopefully me and my man can sing one day in the future. I'm still hanging out with, because basically Love McPherson is getting me all the way together to get me prepared. But I am saying, for those who are just chiming in, welcome to the Gray Area. You have stepped into the Gray Area with Shari Nycole. I'm your host, and also relationship expert, author, speaker, and media personality, Love McPherson. We're talking all things love, relationships, dating, all that good stuff. And before the break, Love asked me a very simple question. Why do I want to be married? It seems like a simple, you know how sometimes people ask you a simple question and you're like, oh, that's easy. And then you be like, then you think about it like, man, actually, that's a tough one. But honestly, I think at this point in my life, it's because I really genuinely do want a family. And part of it is because that's been my measure, my model. And so I've watched my parents, oh my gosh, I almost forgot. They'll be, 35 years of marriage this week, I think, or next week. So I think that when I was younger, I just thought it was nice. You know, it's like, oh, I want a big wedding and I want to get married because that's what you're supposed to do. And, you know, and then kind of like late 20s when I watched my sisters get married. So I'm the oldest of three girls. I'm 34. My middle sister, she's 32, turned 32 today. Happy birthday, Whitney. I love you. And my other little sister, Deanna, is 31, I believe, and she's married. So both my sisters are married. Whitney has 2 kids. So at this point now, it's not about, you know, I don't want to be lonely no, I really do want a family. I really do want a family. I just don't want to, the successes that God has blessed me with, I just don't want to experience them alone. I would love to share my life in general with other human beings in that capacity. So that's why.
That's awesome. Okay, because guess what? What a lot of times you will hear people say, give answers like, I just want to wake up to somebody and we just look into each other's eyes and they say, I love you. I want somebody to support my dreams. I want somebody who I can just, cuddle up and come home to and wrap myself in their arms. And I think, well, guess what? A lot of married people want that too, but they don't get it. So the same reason you're trying to get married is why some married people are trying to get divorced. They don't have that person to wake up next to. They don't have that person who is supporting their dreams. They don't have that companion who's looking in their eyes and saying, I love you. So marriage obviously is not the key to that because it doesn't guarantee it. The person has the person who you marry has to be a person with integrity who can actually marry according to his decision to love you rather than his emotion to love you. And
That's
you have
good.
to be able to marry according to your decision to love your husband rather than your emotion to love your husband. And a lot of times people marry because they say, oh, he makes me feel so good. She makes me so happy, all sorts of kind of stuff. And I know that within 2 years, all of that emotional will not even support itself, and sometimes sooner than that. So what do you need to marry for? Exactly what you said, because what our goal is as Christians is to produce after our own kind. That was the original plan in the garden, is to produce after our own kind. We were supposed to produce after the God kind because we were perfect and God had made us. And notice how Adam he had his image right intact. Let me tell you. Let me show you how intact his image was. God brought him everything, showed him, hey, how about this is a mate? How about this is a mate? How about this is a mate? He was like, nope, no. I'm made in the image and likeness of God. None of that stuff is going to work for me. He was selective. God said, okay, I'm going to build you something totally different. And he brought him something that was conducive for him. Now, think about this. So Satan looked at that and saw how Adam was able to look at everything brought to him and turn it down. So he said, if I could get to that image, I can get him. Trauma shatters your image. It distorts how you see yourself. It distorts how you see others. It distorts how you see God. That's what trauma does, the emotional wounds. And this is what happens. As a result, happiness, the scientific basis of happiness is this. DNA it makes up 50% of your happiness. If you bring traumas back into that, and if you carry generational trauma, 50% of your happiness is based on that. You got to get healed.
Wow.
Number 2, 40% is internal issues that's the injuries, the emotional wounds you suffered here on this earth since you've been born. And 10%, listen to the next statistic, 10% is about external issues. We think we want to put 90% on a person to make us happy when they have the ability to give us 10%.
Wow.
10%. You bring a gift of 90%, but it's the work that you do prior to the relationship. Now, if you are producing after your own kind and all you and your mate are bringing trauma to the table, what are you going to continue bringing? Generations of trauma, generations of infidelity, generations of abuse, generations of all of these things. And we continue to reproduce that, and that's exactly what comes to me. I see this every day. I can ask them about their history, and I can tell you what you're producing in your relationship. So as a single person, your focus has to be on that 90%. You've got to look at that DNA. You've got to see what you are reproducing that mama did and daddy did that you said you would never do. And, and you have to stop and look at the injuries that you suffered. You've got to be healed, and you got to talk to somebody who can look at and spot it and work you through it. And then finally, as you're healed, the trauma is healed, the shattered, distorted images of yourself, you restore the image of who you are, you love who you are, and guess what? You will select like Adam. You will select what's suitable for you.
Wow.
rather than go and get the monkey and say, good enough.
Wow. Man, I really hope if somebody is listening to this and in a position to take notes, if you are driving in your car, obviously I'm not speaking to you unless you're going to pull over. Okay. But if you're at home listening to us via the Philly's Favorite app or philly'sfavorite.com, I hope you're taking notes, because this is the type of advice that people pay money for. This is next level. Also, I want you guys to get engaged with myself and Love McPherson on Instagram as well as Twitter, LOVE_MCPHERSON, and I am Shari _Nycole SHARI_NYCOLE on Instagram and Twitter. We definitely want to hear from you guys and get your thoughts on this conversation. And I want to shift gears a little bit, Love. I want to ask you about the dating apps. What?
Yeah.
I can't really bring myself to do them, but what are your thoughts on dating apps right now?
Well, I think that I don't mind dating apps. I actually like that for people to see dating apps, because this is what I found. I found that, first of all, let me tell you the cons of the dating app. The cons is that you kiss a whole lot of frogs before you find a prince on there. You also get guys who are there to do nothing but play. It's a buffet to them, and they just want to taste everything that's on the buffet table. There are guys who are like-minded like you, who desire a relationship, and they're there for real. Now, what I like about the dating apps, the pros, is that you get to, there are certain ones where you get to select what you want to move forward. So it's not a bunch of guys selecting you. You get to okay somebody who has seen your profile, said, I like you, but you get to respond, or you get to choose. There's the other ones that, this is just a pickup app. Stay away from that if that's not the direction you're going in. There are professional ones that's just for doctors. There are the ones that's just for successful people. So there, but the main thing I like about it is you get to weed out a lot of the stuff that you don't want by how you structure your profile. And what you say is just not, these are red flags. This is things that I will not accept. And so as you create the profile, make sure that you don't seem harsh, but you also stand firm with your core values, and that you don't abandon them because you feel desperate for a guy or a girl. And so, what I do also see as a pro is that a lot of times, because we're so busy and, COVID and all this other kind of stuff, but a lot of times we're so busy until the professional women of today, they are so busy working hard with their jobs and working long hours and sometimes working weekends and things like that. Yeah. And it's so much to do inside their houses until they're really not as social getting out at different places. And so
guilty.
Yeah. And so they got that Rapunzel thing that somebody just supposed to walk past, and you're supposed to just drop your ponytail. And so I don't know, like a 30-inch or something. I don't really know what that's supposed to be, 50-inch. And so drop down that 50-inch ponytail, and somebody's supposed to climb up there to get to you. And so what I'm saying to you is this: just he who finds a wife, you can at least show that you're there. But you can turn them down. Make sure of this. If you're going to get on, you have the faith to say, if this ain't the fish for me, I will throw it back in the pond. Don't go, don't sit there and say, well, maybe if I take this fish and I add this and that to it, and maybe if I just cut it up and cut off this part of the fish and save that part of it. No. That ain't the fish for you. Throw it back in the pond for somebody else. But you got to have enough self-confidence and self-love that you throw away stuff that you know does not suit you and is not going in the direction that you're going in. If that person says, you know what, I'm not really interested in a relationship, I got, a lot of stuff to do, I'm just interested in dating and hanging out, guess what? Throw it back, because that ain't the direction you're going in. I'm not saying he wants to marry you, but at least he has marriage on his mind.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
This is not a marriage proposal. This is just, yes, I do want a family. I'm looking for that, down the road. Okay. So we both heading in the same direction. It may not even be with each other, but at least we got the same value system. We start there.
And you talk about throwing the fish back. And let me ask you, I mean, we're in a society now where, at least for me and some friends that I have, this men courting, it seems like a lost art at some point in time. And I want also, let me lead with this disclaimer for those who may need it, because I don't want the people to think I'm male bashing, because I'm not. I have a lot of amazing men in my life that have been mentors to me. My father is an amazing man. So I'm having these experiences and sharing my opinions based on my experiences, and not to come down on men, because there are a lot of amazing men out there. But what I found in kind of conversations that I've had with other girlfriends of mine who have kind of run into the same thing is courting. And it's like, the guys will be like, hey, really wanting to get your number and want to, talk to you and text. They're doing a lot of texting. They don't know how to call people. It's weird. They want to get on the text message, and not be assertive or intentional about setting up. And this is pre-COVID, really setting up time, like going out to eat, like doing regular basic things. It's almost like women are now a lot of women are in a situation now where they have to be the one that is kind of moving that ball forward. Do you think that this is something that is happening more often than not? And if so, how can women kind of identify if it's worth kind of the work and putting that extra umph in, or if it's just like, girl, he might be the fish you need to throw back in the pond?
Well, this is the thing. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a leader, that's the beginning of leadership skills, right?
Yeah,
is to
absolutely.
be able to lead. And so if he does not, this is what I will say about that. This is twofold. And a lot of times we have to realize, if you've been raised in a home where there has been chivalry, there has been a positive role models, there have been, good men in your life who have led you and guided you and things like that, then that is very good. You're blessed. However, 60% of the men that are raised today are raised only by, they are raised by single mothers. Single mothers are doing great jobs. A lot of them are super single. They're doing everything for the guy, their kids, and sometimes they make it too easy because the man doesn't see his role in the home. And so he sees that mother taking care of him and doing this and being the initiator and being the aggressor, and he doesn't see how two people in a home can partner and play together at a certain thing. You understand? It's kind of like if you were playing one-on-one with somebody in a tennis match, and you had never seen how doubles could look. And you say, oh, that's all you have to do. But it's a whole different dynamic when you're playing with a partner. It's the skills, the rules, everything changed. If you've never seen that, you don't know the rules. You don't have the skill to do that. So they'll come, and then they will get their advice from people who may not know it themselves. So this is what you end up encountering. You end up encountering men who are not even accustomed to being the aggressor all the time. Right. And if you have been in a fathered home, and just because it's a man in the home who is your DNA is the same, and bio father does not mean you've been fathered. And so, but if you have been a fathered daughter, there's expectations that men don't even realize that it's kind of blatant that you're not getting it. And so either this man is going to be willing to be mentored, or he just wants to be ignorant. And not ignorant in I mean in the not knowing.
Right.
And so if he is that person who just says, I don't know, and I don't care, and there's a lot of women who will put up with me just like I am, then that's going to carry on that whole attitude of not growing, not learning. That is a mentality. That's not a behavior. You're dealing with a mentality. If that's not the mentality you want, that's a fish you throw back. However, if he has a mentality of saying, I don't know, but I'm willing to grow, that's a mentality too. And if he's beyond just saying it, but you see his actions are aggressive towards it, and you have the patience, you need to. That's worth, salvaging. I wouldn't necessarily throw that fish back. And so, I am just saying, 37 years later, I've been married for 37 years. My husband was raised in a home where his father and mother stayed together all their life. They were married and everything like that, but they didn't have a close relationship. My parents did. And so I watched, and I was a very father-daughter. I was named Love because of my mother's love for my dad. And I was the sixth of 8 children, so she could still love them at that point. And so what ended up happening is I understood, but my husband did not always see the leadership type of man that I had experienced. My husband learned from my dad how to love me. He learned by watching my dad love my mother, and he watched how my dad took care of me. And he was willing to learn. And 37 years later, I have a great man. I have a great husband because he was humble enough to see his weaknesses and be willing to grow. And I had to learn how to love him as well. And so what I'm saying to you is just because they are deficient in some areas doesn't mean you toss them back. It is the mentality of the man, whether he is willing to grow, because we all have to continue to grow. And so are you willing to see your deficiencies and move forward in the growth cycle to make sure that you love that person? But as far as just not courting, if you specifically ask somebody, hey, you know what I would love to do is I'd love to go this, blah, 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 and they ignore you and they don't ask you, then there's a problem right there because they are not conscious of your needs. They are, you'll become resentful. You become resentful because you've asked somebody to do something and they refuse to do it, or you expect somebody to do something and they don't do it. So if you're just expecting and not asking, sometimes that's because of your own fears of rejection. But if you ask and then they don't, then that's a whole nother story.
Wow, that's so good. Love, before I let you go, I just wanted you to kind of let everybody in on what are some of the things that you have coming up and how can people continue to, support you. You give so much of yourself and your energy and your wisdom to others, and how can we give back to you?
I would love to continue to give to you all as well. This is the thing. During this time, you may say, you know what, I think I just need to stop and pause and get somebody to kind of look at me and see, am I doing this thing called relationships right? Do I need to be considering some things? And I have a lot of singles who do that. I don't just work with marrieds. I have a lot of singles who come and say, you know what, I'm ready to get married. Let me, get what it takes. And so I'll work with you. I'll talk to you. I'll find out your fears. I'll find out your inhibitions. I'll even walk you through the dating process, all of that. And so you need to just catch, lovemcpherson.com is my website. You can sign up for your individual sessions there, and then the follow-up sessions if you choose to continue. The next thing is I have a group session every Tuesday night called The Workplace, where you do the work on yourself. Either way, you got to do the work, you all. For that 50% and that 40%, you got to do the work. And so this is a group session where we every Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. You can remain anonymous. Nobody has to know who you are. We have a good time on that session. It's 1 hour. If you can't make it for a session or on that Tuesday, you still have access 24/7 to the class that you missed. So, one of those options is you are serious about getting yourself together, and that's men and women, and you are ready to see if you are ready for the dating world, then you need to do it. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there who are not serious. They just are out to use you. They are traumatized themselves, and they are not ready. And you know what? You don't have to be tripped up by that. Don't get discouraged by that. Just realize there are still people who are willing, men and women who are eligible, bachelors. The disparity is, they say it's so many black men to women. There are 100 black women to 83 black men, okay? And and that's not a huge gap, but that's a gap. But that's not a huge gap. And I'm talking about people who are, neither one of them are incarcerated, or both are heterosexual. And so 100 to 83. And so don't have this big thing where in your mind where it's nobody out there, it's no good men, it's no good women, all this other kind of stuff. You psych yourself if you're telling yourself and feeding yourself that you won't be able to spot them if they do show up. And when they do show up, don't sabotage because of your fears, because they will be too good to be true for you. Don't have too good to be true, and then you're scared to go in because could it be possible that I'm about to get what I want? You all, if you're dealing with that stuff, you need to get put a check on yourself and be fearlessly learn to love. Choose love, because love never fails.
Beautiful. Well, you never fail, love. I absolutely love you. I thank you so much for hanging out with me on The Gray Area. We have to do it again. And many blessings to you and your family. Tell Tiffany I adore her. I love her as well. And just thank you so much for all your support. And I will talk to you soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. I hope you got as much out of that as I did. I'm almost at a loss for words. What a powerful time that I was able to spend with Love McPherson. For those who weren't familiar with her prior to our conversation, I'm sure you're familiar now. And as she said, make sure you guys go to her website, lovemcpherson.com. She has a lot of amazing resources that men and women can take advantage of. And it's always work that has to be done, and we have to understand that a lot of times that work starts with us. So I pray that all of you, including myself, understand how to be introspective and how that really does play a part in our progression. And make sure you guys follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Shari_Nycole, SHARI_NYCOLE. I'm always excited to chat with you guys, and thank you all so much for hanging out with me this evening. We're going to do it again next Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Do not miss it. I got a great show in store for you guys. Thank you all so much. See you next week.